Da-na-na-na-na. Good morning and welcome everybody to the Crypto Mining Show, your one-stop shop for all cryptocurrency news from the perspective of a cryptocurrency miner. I go by Blind Run on the internet and Matthew in real life. Today, yes, I did get Monero mining on the Steam Deck. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then other than that, we obviously have all the crypto markets going up. Crypto traders are split on the upcoming Fed rate hikes impact on Bitcoin. We're going to be talking in depth about Ethereum's rollup race. What is a true ZK EVM? I think this is important to understand, especially as we get closer and closer to the merge and understanding essentially what the options are for ETH as far as scalability goes as it pertains to the merge and post-merge and what's happening there, because as you guys may know, Ethereum has changed that roadmap quite a few different times. Then we're going to be talking about Silicon prepping for another Fantasy 2 GPU for the Chinese domestic graphics market, and that should be unveiled on the 3rd of August. And then we have Neoxa being hacked. Hacked. A Neoxa hack. After all that, we'll get into the questions and answers at the end of the show. Remember, super chats are never required, always appreciated, first to be read. And if you want to ask a question, tagging @SonOfATech at the beginning of the message will make it more easy for me to see and answer. So that is all. Before we get into it, let's take a look at today's sponsor. Today's sponsor is Crypto.com. Crypto.com is my go-to centralized exchange for liquidating my crypto assets. With their Crypto.com Visa debit card, I can load up my mined Ethereum to pay for power and other operating costs quickly while earning up to 8% cash back. In addition to the Visa debit card, there are additional fiat options, including wire transfers, to easily receive your profits. Crypto.com also offers additional services, including trading and even staking, to earn additional revenue on your investments. Join 10 million plus users buying and selling 100 plus cryptocurrencies at true cost by using my affiliate link in the description for a $25 funding bonus. Or enter referral code SOAT at sign up for the same bonus. Remember, cryptocurrency investment comes with significant risks, so do your own research. Welcome back, everybody. So, first things first, as we said, we're just going to go ahead and talk about the Steam Deck. I actually have it right here, and I was playing some Crisis on it, Crisis 2 on it last night while I was laying in bed, and it was pretty nice. It's a pretty cool system. But what makes it extremely cool is that right out of the box, you can go into desktop mode. And desktop mode runs something called Steam OS. And Steam OS is based on Arch Linux. So all you really have to do is get a console open, pop into there, and set a password for the primary user, and that will have all your root permissions, etc. From there, it has a Firefox already installed on it, so you just open up Firefox and head on over to the XMRig GitHub and download the files for XMRig, extract them, and then through a console window, just pop into there, navigate to wherever you extracted the mining files to, and run the .sh file as needed. Once you do that and you run the executable, it'll start mining. Initially, what happened with it, and we did this all live on twitch.tv/blindrun last night. Initially, what happened is it only used 2 threads. Now, this particular unit has 4 cores, 8 threads. So I went ahead and made the necessary changes to the config.json file to go ahead and get it mining on all 8 threads. So that was successful. And as you can see here, I did tweet the picture out. We can go ahead and pull it up for you. You can also go rewatch it if you like on the Twitch channel, if you want to see it more in depth and everything I did. So once you get that up and running, you're getting somewhere between 70 and 90 hash a second. Not fantastic, but that does result in about 680 to 700 hash a second on XMR. And that's pretty cool. That being said, I don't have power numbers. Why don't I have power numbers? Well, it's pretty simple. Right now, there's not really an official deck for the Steam Deck. There's not an official dock. So I have this third-party dock that we were utilizing to feed the screen in, all that sort of stuff. It's going to, no matter what, pull 100 watts off of this particular dock. So it's hard to tell exactly what the power consumption was. That being said, it's a very low power unit, so I would assume it's extremely low, but it pretty much is going to read, if it's charging, it's going to read at 100 watts. If it's not charging, it's not, and there's no way to actually pull the power reading numbers off of there unless we did some modifications to the Steam Deck itself, excuse me. And I don't really want to do modifications to the Steam Deck itself that extensively, right? I'm not going to solder in anything to get the right wattage coming off of the battery to the processor. I don't think that that is really worth it for this unit, nor is it great for pricing. Now, that is just the CPU. This board is a custom board, and it has basically, it's an APU for lack of a better term, which means that you have your graphics on there as well as your CPU, and it has that for all of the games. Now, that portion, the GPU portion, only has OpenGL support. It does not have OpenCL support. And that means that we couldn't really actually get it working with any sort of other miner as far as Ethereum or anything along those lines. Now, there is, of course, the alternative of testing it with Windows, which we will try, but I haven't gotten that far yet. I did try to install OpenCL Mesa, but I didn't really get far enough for it to actually function. So I couldn't get that fully functioning. The driver support's not there, so because there's no driver support for that particular setup, we can't get any GPU numbers off of it at this time, just CPU numbers off of it. So that's really where it ends up being at. I did try to install HiveOS on a micro SD card, because you basically have a micro SD card here, and you can basically dual boot the system by holding the power button and the volume. Let's see if I can show you guys here. I think that worked. Where did I put that? So here's the SD card. Let me put that in first. Huh. Do. Wonder if I accidentally left it on all night and it's out of power. It just keeps going beep beep. Anyways, you can boot off of the SD card, which we'll be talking more about that later in a full video. And you can get to the little Hive initial boot to Hive and then click boot Hive, but I don't ever get into the OS itself. I tried though. I thought it'd be really cool. So that's where we're at. We did test video games. Excuse me. We did test video games on it as well. If you guys would like a review from my perspective, let me know. We tested God of War. We tested Senua's Sacrifice, Hellblade. We tested Elden Ring. I did later on play with it on the streaming capabilities, remote play. I think like in the house, like it makes a lot of sense for like remote play. For example, if I just want to play Elden Ring, but I want to play it at 60 frames a second and not be playing it at the 30 frames per second if it's running natively. But if you want to play things like Rocket League, that's 60 FPS locked. A lot of other games are fantastic as far as performance goes. And then the size of the screen makes it to where, you know, it seems pretty good as far as visuals go. They get pretty gritty in like Elden Ring if you're running it natively, as well as in some of the other ones. So there's that. There's also the disappointment that it doesn't have Wi-Fi 6. It only has Wi-Fi 5. Why? Why do you not use the latest Wi-Fi standard in a kind of next-gen handheld that has this feature, this remote play that obviously is super beneficial from a better connection? I don't know. That's a little weird. But overall, the system's really cool because you get basically a full fat Linux to play around with. And you get pretty much any dock will work with it out of the box. There's lots of neat stuff. It's very open compared to what I thought it would be. But let's get into crypto news. That's it. We mined on it. We'll be doing the how-to video for you guys later on down the line, as well as some other stuff that I'm working on with it too, crypto related. And if you want a non-crypto related review, let me know from there too. We have an update from Neoxa. They were hacked yesterday. A lot of people were talking about the price getting dumped. Apparently the price was getting dumped because essentially at the end of the day, they were getting hacked and that's what was getting dumped. So it says, "Add everyone. It is unfortunate there are bad actors out there, and sadly one of them attacked the Neoxa chain overnight. Here's the chain of events as we know and actions to follow. 1. Someone that mined at the start of Neoxa with a mining farm had sold off their coins, 10 million, also part of the suspicious address, apparently. There was a double spend attack on the network. Coins were crashed that do not exist, or created that do not exist, excuse me. And these coins were spent and sold on the exchanges, and they have already been spent. Exchanges are missing balances. Neoxa will have to reimburse these exchanges with development and POG funds that were scheduled to be burned. There's just no other choice." So usually what happens is they burn coins that were part of the proof of game portion. And I guess more of the proof of gaming function that's within there, whatever they have set aside for proof of gaming, is also going to be paid as reimbursement for the exchanges. It says, "When exchanges open, we have requested them to have 720 confirmations for now. Attacks have happened in many blockchains," they go on to say, "and Neoxa is not the first, nor will it be the last." And it says, "These types of attacks are known as mining double spend attacks. These attacks are done with big mining farms and NiceHash. With 720 confirmations, exchanges will be able to find these attacks and blocks will be orphaned in that period. While the network hash rate seems high to some, it's relatively small when it comes to attacks." And this really does bring up a kind of an interesting, I think, development question when you're looking at coins, because especially proof of work coins. And that is, should you put your trust in a proof of work coin that doesn't have basically a brand new algorithm? Now, there's a couple arguments for this, right? A big farm's still going to be able to be malicious, but at least with a new algorithm, what you end up with is an algorithm that is not supported by, well, NiceHash. And NiceHash has been notorious for basically facilitating large attacks like this. Now, was this specifically NiceHash or was it just this one large miner? I'm not too clear. But basically what happens, just so everybody's clear, is called a 51% attack. This is something that most blockchains have solved, even newer ones that are coming out. But what ends up happening is that you have over 50% of the hash rate by a single miner, and then they are able to double spend coins. What that meant is what they were sending into the exchange was not actually all generated legitimately through the network. And that's because the chain will follow the longest chain. So there's a lot going on there from the attack perspective. And it just makes me think, like, possibly when you're looking at a lot of these coins that are getting started up, you may want to lean towards coins that are on newer algorithms. But alternatively to that, there are options out there to build projects that take security from already established networks. What do I mean by this? Well, an example is Komodo, for example, which is what I've been doing Soakcoin on. Komodo supports two algorithms right now. One is going to be an ASIC algorithm. The other one's a CPU mining algorithm, and they're going to be adding more. But the cool thing about Komodo as a platform is that when you split off the chain for Komodo and you spin it up, you have the option of basically taking the security from the Komodo chain and applying it to your new project. This allows you to maintain security without having risks of things like these 51% attacks. Obviously, with the Kapal algorithm and Neoxa basically just being a straight up fork of essentially Ravencoin, it was kind of not going to have this type of security, unfortunately. I don't know what's going to happen with the funds moving forward. Obviously, it was going to be primed for attack, I think, just because of it being so fresh and new, but getting a lot of attention thanks to proof of game. And then, of course, the interesting stuff happening earlier this week with both Mojang's response to blockchain and NFTs within Minecraft, and Neoxa deciding not to deploy the Minecraft server. This is all kind of bouncing around in the background. Now, 720 confirmations is going to take forever, and that does mean that dumping your coins will be extremely difficult if you're trying to get out. Should you get out, that's going to be up to you. I don't have any financial advice on this one way or the other. It does look like the team is trying to address it, so that's good news. And we'll have to see how it plays out. But it's pretty bad when you see an attack like this. Also, pay attention for a chain split as well, a potential chain split, and make sure you're on the right chain, because this could happen again. As far as their plan to fix it, all it is adding in long confirmations, meaning the actual attack vector of the 51% attack for double spend is still there. So it doesn't sound like they necessarily quite yet, and we'll have to see later on down the line, but it doesn't sound like they necessarily quite yet have an idea to prevent this in the future. And by this, I mean like the 51% attacks, etc. Now, Silicon preps for faster Fantasy 2 GPU for Chinese domestic graphics market to unveil on August 3rd. Chinese GPU manufacturer Silicon is about to introduce its brand new Fantasy 2 graphics card in the coming weeks. The company ensures the new graphics card is more powerful than the initial launch of the Fantasy 1 design. At the end of November 2021, Chinese company Silicon revealed the company's new Fantasy 1 graphics card series. The graphics cards were to be used in enterprises, workstations, systems, gaming rigs, virtual reality applications, and integrated into laptops. There were 4 designs that the company had on display from the series. Since then, there has been no word about the GPU outside of China, and none have been reviewed since Silicon's announcement. Silicon's Fantasy 1 GPU series offered 4 designs for several uses. The 2 unique graphics cards from the company were the Type A and Type B GPUs. The Type A GPU provided as high as 5 teraflops of performance, and the Type B model was unique in that it was fashioned with 2 GPUs and double the compute power. Now the company is planning to release a brand new chip in the form of the Fantasy 2 GPU that will offer even better performance, and is expected to launch an online event which will be hosted by Silicon on the 3rd of August. Google API translated the above image through Google's Translate feature. WCCF Tech apologizes for any technical issues in the translating of the text. The shadow of Fantasy renders the future. Fantasy number 2 GPU, new product launch conference and GPU cutting edge technology application seminar on August 3rd. Initially, the Silicon Type B graphics card featured dual Fantasy 1 GPUs on the same PCB. The card used an in-house interconnect known as InnoLink, which might be a PLX chip connecting the 2 GPUs on the same board. When Silicon first announced the GPU series, the GPUs were to be able to support as many as 32 users on a cloud-based system, and also offer support for current DirectX API and other notable graphical APIs. The graphics card was to offer up to 10 teraflops of FP32 and up to 320 gigapixels per second fill rate. The company had also revealed that it could run up to 32 1080p 60 FPS or 64 720 30 FPS streams. The Type B GPU by Inosilicon was to utilize 32 gigabytes of GDDR6 memory, or 6X memory, across a 128-bit bus. Power is expected to be provided through dual 8-pin connectors. The graphics cards wanted to compete with the same performance of the NVIDIA RTX 3060 GPU, but failed to deliver the same level of performance. It is likely that they would change, with the Fantasy 2 GPU, but we shouldn't keep our hopes high. Now, obviously for mining, it's nice that this would be the only other option other than NVIDIA that has GDDR6X. However, that bus width is not very large at 128-bit, so you would probably be seeing around 3060 performance numbers. Maybe. It's kind of hard to calculate out because they haven't given us the clear bandwidth numbers, and so I'm a little hesitant to say like exactly what the hash rate would be on that specifically at this point, but not that great, right? 128-bit bus, you could take that and compare that to an NVIDIA GPU with well, you couldn't, because all the 128-bit buses, this is the problem that I was running into, all the 128-bit buses on NVIDIA have GDDR6, not GDDR6X. But it really wouldn't be that much more because you're probably talking about 18 gigabits per second versus 21 gigabits per second, something like that along those lines. It's really hard to determine exactly what that hash rate would be. You basically have faster performing memory, but you have a lower bus width than we've ever seen. So it's a very interesting setup from Inosilicon, and we'll just have to sit back and wait and see if anybody can get their hands on them. Now, the crypto market is recovering, and we have basically to sit down, start learning about Ethereum and their rollups, their layer 2s, their scaling options, because these are going to be talking points as we get closer to the merge. And I think it's very important as miners that you're up to date on proof of work versus proof of stake, what Ethereum is doing and how they're implementing it. So when you run into the conversations surrounding the merge and proof of stake being needed for scalability, you can express that, well, actually scalability is being done primarily by these third parties like Polygon, etc. And you need to understand what the difference between ZK rollups are and all of that sort of stuff, right? So I want to just cover this. This is going to be a little long, but Ethereum's rollup race. What is a true ZK EVM? The ZK rollup race between Ethereum Layer 2's Scroll, Polygon, and Matter Labs may come down to definitions. Last week, a trio of announcements from Scroll, Matter Labs, and Polygon all had something in common. Each company implied it would be the first to bring a ZK EVM to market. ZK EVMs are a type of zero-knowledge rollup, a layer 2 network that runs atop Ethereum to process transactions, bundle them up, and pass them back down to Ethereum's layer 1 mainnet. ZK rollups use fancy cryptography to take some of the load off of Ethereum's highly trafficked layer 1 network. As a result, they promise to offer users cheaper transactions along with a host of other benefits. ZK EVMs all aspire to the same goal, creating a ZK rollup experience that feels exactly like using Ethereum's layer 1 blockchain. This means developers should be able to port over their existing smart contracts without changing their code and without abandoning the EVM, Ethereum Virtual Machine tools, that they are accustomed to using. The EVM, rather than being one specific piece of hardware or software, is better understood as an amalgam of rules, standards, and software packages. When shared across different computers running similar software, this shared set of standards coalesces into a network. Ethereum is one such network, although plenty of other blockchain networks have adopted versions of EVM as well. But how can three companies all claim to be the first to create a ZK EVM? The answer comes down to how they define what it means to create a true ZK EVM. We won't explain all of the different types of rollups in this article. For more on that, including the difference between optimistic rollups and the more advanced ZK rollups discussed here, you can read last week's edition of Valid Points. and CoinDesk Layer 2 explainer. Optimistic like rollups is Optimism and Arbitrum, for example. Until now, zero-knowledge rollups have only been applied to a handful of use cases, like sending tokens between addresses or trading NFTs. ZK EVM, zero-knowledge rollups that aim to support any Ethereum smart contract, were expected to be years away until just recently. Compared to quicker-to-market optimistic rollups, general-purpose ZK EVMs offer a number of security and user experience benefits. In the future, they are expected to take over from Ethereum's mainnet as the primary hub for Ethereum activity in the years to come. As for why three teams all seem to think they have the first ZK EVM, it might be the case that they were genuinely unaware that their competitors were moving at a similar pace. When Matter Labs said it would be the first ZK EVM to market in the first quarter of 2023, perhaps it didn't realize Polygon was en route to launch its own ZK EVM as soon as this summer. And maybe Polygon, when it announced that it would be the first ZK EVM to market, didn't realize that ZK Sync was apparently prepped to launch on Ethereum's mainnet by the end of the year, ahead of Polygon's supposed plan to launch in early of 2023. Timelines in crypto land are notoriously unreliable, and roadmaps from Scroll, Matter Labs, and Polygon should be taken with a grain of salt. But timelines aren't the only reason why Scroll, Matter Labs, and Polygon all claim they will be the first ZK EVM to market. Part of the disagreement comes down to how they define what makes a true ZK EVM. Polygon faced criticism last week when it announced that it would be launching the first EVM equivalent ZK rollup to market. According to some onlookers, Polygon's solution would be better described as EVM compatible, not EVM equivalent. So what is the difference between compatibility and equivalence? The two leading optimistic rollups for Ethereum, Arbitrum, and Optimism boast that they are EVM equivalent. This means that that the experience of developing on Arbitrum and Optimism is 100% identical to the experience of developing on Ethereum. Developers have access to all of the same tools and frameworks that they use to develop on Ethereum mainnet, and they won't need to worry about their Layer 1 contracts breaking if they are directly ported over to a Layer 2 chain. EVM equivalence is a massive deal to developers since it means far less overhead when migrating from Layer 1 to Layer 2. Users, too, see benefits of EVM equivalence. Rather than juggling roll-up specific wallets or other tools, users of EVM equivalent chains such as Optimism and Arbitrum won't need to abandon familiar apps like MetaMask, and that is very important. EVM compatibility is a looser definition as a loser. It's a loser. We don't want compatibility, we want equivalence. You loser compatibility. EVM compatibility is a looser definition than EVM equivalence. Rather than the developer and user experiences being exactly identical to that of Ethereum, EVM compatible chains might not plug into all of the same tools and software frameworks that are used on Ethereum. Developers might need to rewrite their smart contracts in order to port them over to an EVM compatible blockchain, sometimes in a completely different programming language than Ethereum's native language, Solidity. Even if developers are still able to write their smart contracts using Solidity, certain operations might not be fully supported by the rollup, which can lead to bugs or other engineering headaches. Although users might be able to send assets back and forth between the EVM-compatible rollup and Ethereum, doing so might require a specialized wallet rather than MetaMask. When Polygon announced that it would be bringing the first EVM equivalent ZK EVM to market last week, some onlookers pointed out that the specifications provided by Polygon would be better described as EVM compatible, not EVM equivalent. In June, a Twitter thread, Scrolls Laozu Zhang, something like that, Laozu Zhang, described three different types of ZK EVMs: bytecode level, language level, and consensus level. All of the applications announced last week fall into the first two categories. ZK Sync 2.0 falls into the language level bucket. Developers can write smart contracts in Solidity, but ZK Sync will transpile that code into another language called YUL behind the scenes, which it then interprets in order to do all of the fancy cryptography that powers the zero-knowledge rollup under the hood. On the plus side, Matter Labs, the team behind ZK Sync, says that its system was engineered to provide the rollup certain advantages, particularly around how it generates computation-intensive cryptographic proofs. On the negative end, ZK Sync, by most definitions, would be better described as EVM compatible rather than EVM equivalent. There's a chance that ZK Sync won't be one-to-one compatible with every single Ethereum tool out there, though Matter Labs insists that this shouldn't be an issue in the long term. Scroll and Polygon are both taking a bytecode level approach to their ZK EVMs. These approaches rip out the transpiler step completely, meaning they don't convert Solidity code into a separate language before it gets compiled and interpreted. This means better compatibility with the EVM. But even here, there are distinctions that may make Scroll more of a true ZK EVM than Polygon, depending upon who you ask. As Masari explained in a report released last week, part of the debate follows whether the EVM bytecode is being executed directly or interpreted first and then executed. In other words, if a solution does not mirror official EVM specs, it cannot be considered a true ZK EVM. Within this definition, Scroll might be considered a true ZK EVM versus others. According to Masari, Polygon uses a new set of assembly codes to express each opcode, the human-readable translation of bytecode, which could allow the behavior of the code to be different on the EVM. Last week's ZK EVM announcements represent impressive advances in technology, but as crypto has proven time and time again, even highly technical concepts are not immune to marketing distortions. At the end of the day, though, slight technical distinctions, like the difference between EVM equivalence and compatibility, exist on a poorly defined spectrum. It's also important to point out that, like, Scroll could be better, right? But Polygon is once again, like, has that huge first mover advantage and has so much adoption. Honestly, too, Polygon has a ton of adoption because of miners. That's another thing to point out, is like the reason why Polygon has a ton of adoption is because Ethermine picked it up very, very early on to enable low fee payouts to miners. And when you have a system that is like first to move and it is, you know, highly invested in and is also supporting the ecosystem from the consensus level all the way through, you end up with something that is close to that too big to fail. So whether or not Scroll is actually better, it's still hard to actually fight through that kind of first mover advantage, right? As Scroll co-founder Sandy Pang told CoinDesk, there isn't a clear consensus on any definitions. Scroll's whole research team tends to gravitate towards a certain narrative or certain view on things, but it's by no means a definitive thing. There isn't a consensus within our research team on what everything means. What's even less clear and probably less important is who can rightfully claim to be the first ZK EVM. First is a very philosophical concept Pang explained. Whether you measure first being the first to announce or the first to start or the first to achieve mainnet. It's the first to achieve mainnet, duh. It could be a couple of months or years to iron out all the kinks and debug. In the long term, it seems like they are all of the ZK EVM solutions announced last week, along with several others we haven't even heard about, will coalesce around new technologies and roll-up solutions that make Ethereum vastly more accessible than it is today. The competition around timelines and definitions is just a sideshow. And I mean, it is also important because what we've seen is obviously in the all-core dev calls from Ethereum, they've kind of started abandoning sharding, which is the scalability solution. Now there is something that is way off in the distant future called dank sharding, but they are putting that on hold in favor of letting these third parties have these ZK rollups. They've talked about this before, using rollups, and they're taking the rollup concept and putting that into the sharding concept with dank sharding. We've covered this before, but that's way down the line. So these projects are going to be extremely relevant still once post-merge, right? Because we aren't really seeing a true Ethereum 2.0. We aren't seeing scalability solved. So you will see a lot of the same issues with scaling on Ethereum post-merge, and having these alternatives, these layer 2 solutions will be important. Now it does obviously pose more risk at the end of the day for security, because as we've seen, some of these layer 2 solutions do end up creating security holes and affecting end users at the end of the day. And with them releasing more and more new stuff, that is just going to be part of the nature of the game. Like I said before though, too, if you're really looking at this from like a third party view and what you should invest in, what you shouldn't, at least like from my humble opinion, not financial advice. If I was purely technological, I think Scroll sounds the best, but if I'm being honest, I think Polygon is going to maintain kind of that market lead when it comes up comes to essentially scaling. That doesn't mean though that we shouldn't keep an eye on optimism at this point, because those optimistic rollups do seem pretty competitive. Let's go ahead and take a look at crypto trader split on the upcoming Fed rate hikes impact on Bitcoin. Yep, more politics or economy, whatever you want to say. We got to get it covered. We need to stay up to date on this sort of stuff because this is coming soon, right? The Fed has raised rates by 150 BPS since March, injecting volatility into asset markets. Yet some analysts expect Bitcoin to stay resilient after Wednesday's hike. The U.S. Federal Reserve will likely raise the benchmark borrowing cost by 75 basis points on Wednesday in a continued effort to drain liquidity to tamp down inflation. This should be happening today. So leading up to this, we get a pump in cryptocurrency, right? It's very interesting. I don't know if even as we speak or sometime before this article, this may be outdated. I don't think that we've gotten the announcement yet. If we did, chat will let me know. But, we're looking at 75 basis points, possibly 100 basis points. As far as I understand, the markets will react negatively at anything over 75. However, if I'm speaking from my own personal thoughts and opinions on it, we should be seeing way over 100 basis points at this point if we wanted to stamp out, actually correct the economy. But it would be extremely painful in the short term. So I understand that they won't do that, right? But that this isn't dissimilar to what we saw back, I believe we've talked about in the 70s and 80s. I think it was in the 80s when they had like a 300 BPS hike, and that is to catch up to inflation. So if your interest rate, as far as I understand it, and I'm not an expert in any of this at all, but if your interest rates are at 5.4%, but you have a CPI of 9.1%, you should have a basis point hike of the difference between that, right? So you would potentially go up as much as 400 BPS to basically even those out, right? That won't happen though. So we're not too worried about it. It's just a couple of different ideas that I've heard kicked around. Crypto traders are split on how Bitcoin would react to the rate hike. Griffin Arden, a volatility trader at crypto asset management firm Blowfin, foresees a Bitcoin price drop after the Fed lifts rates by 75 basis points to 2.25 to 2.5% window. Considering that the overall risk level of the crypto market has not returned to a reasonable level, it is very likely that the Bitcoin price will drop by more than 10% after the Fed rate hike, Arden said. I don't know that I think that will happen, to be completely honest. The Fed's liquidity-sucking measures, such as rate hikes and balance sheets runoff, have roiled asset markets in the past few months. Bitcoin has declined by over 50% since the central bank kicked off the tightening cycle in March. Bitcoin and the broader crypto market may see another relief rally following the 75 basis point rate hike, after which we expect markets to trade sideways, while Ethereum may outperform in anticipation of the merge, according to Dick Lowe, founder and CEO of quant-driven trading firm TDX Strategy. I would expect, at this point, I would expect Ethereum to be performing better than it has been with the news of the merge. I do think a merge launch in the middle of a bear market is a terrible idea. I'm just going to throw that out there. Perhaps traditional and crypto markets have priced in the impending 75 basis point hike, with Fed officials hinting that such a move in recent weeks. Bitcoin has dropped by 7% in the week leading up to Wednesday's Fed event, and then it recovered today, by the way. Now, we are seeing participants taking a risk-off approach ahead of the FOMC decision. As expected, Lowe responded when asked about the pre-Fed flows in the crypto market. At press time, the Fed Fund futures derivatives based on the benchmark interest rate put the likelihood of a 75 BPS move at 75% alongside a 25% probability of a 100 BPS hike. Trader and analyst Alex Kruger said the crypto market could see a small rally following a 75 BPS rate rise, but warned of a decline should the central bank surprise with a 100 basis point move. However, Fed officials had pushed back against a full percentage point hike earlier this month. The focus will be on how worried policymakers are about unemployment risks and the looming recession in Europe. Worldwide, can we just stop all this craziness? A worldwide recession, okay? Bro. Come on, like at this point, what was the quote yesterday? I'm sorry, it was so ridiculous to me, but I think it was yesterday. 2 negative quarters of GDP growth is not technical definition of a recession. I'm like, all right. It's like, even in these articles, we're going to completely ignore that the U.S. is probably in a recession, and we're just going to say that, there's a looming recession in Europe. The market has convinced itself that inflation has peaked and that the Fed will go for slower rate hikes after July, eventually cutting rate next year. And that seems to be evident from the 28 BPS drop in the 10-year Treasury yield in the past 7 days. At press time, the yield stood near 2.8%. Risk assets like Bitcoin could rally if the Fed policy statement or Chairman Jerome Powell sound increasingly concerned about recession risks, bolstering market expectations for a policy pivot from tightening to easing in 2023. However, observers expect the Fed to retain its single-minded focus on controlling inflation while downplaying recession fears. Quote, "There is no doubt that Powell will pivot, but the pivot will not be this year, at least until November, and then there will be no significant reduction in rate hikes like 25 BPS. The reason is that Biden administration needs the Fed to join them in expressing its determination and confidence to fight inflation to win the midterm elections in November," end quote, Blowfin's Arden told CoinDesk. And that is a big factor here. Now, midterms aren't near the effect on the economy that, your primary elections are every 4 years in the United States, but they are enough, especially right now, because frankly, the Biden administration does have to worry quite a bit about securing, seats for their party, because it's not looking good. Like, if we're objectively looking at it, it's not looking good for the Democrats. And what that means from, an economic standpoint is there is some positive that will happen there, because they will try to pump that up, at least in the short term, to make everything look a little bit better than it actually is to secure votes. And that's how that plays out usually every kind of election cycle. According to John Turek, author of the Cheap Convexity blog, the Fed is likely to stick to June's script. We are in this time inconsistency state where the Fed is reaching to June CPI and the market is trading the European recession. The Fed will slide with June CPI, and I think to more of a degree than risk assets are suggesting right now, Turek said in a Fed preview published Tuesday. And that's one of the reasons why I don't think you would see a full correction for the BPS hike. I think we won't see the 100-point, but maybe if you guys can let me know if that did happen. I think 100 is minimum, right? Like if we want to long-term fix the situation, it needs to be 100. All we're doing now is just kind of like delaying the inevitable. It's very odd. And I don't think that it's beneficial to, the public at all for this, to keep it at 75. And I don't think that necessarily it matters as much for cryptocurrency as people may think it does. Meaning these numbers in cryptocurrency right now are fully expected based on the traditional cyclical nature of the halving of Bitcoin. So none of this is even really surprising, because even if the economy wasn't doing poorly like it is, I think you would still see the same price of Bitcoin during this bear market. Now, maybe it would have taken longer to get there, but I think we would have seen the same numbers. Let's get into mining profitability for the day after a word from today's sponsor. Today's sponsor is Crypto.com. Crypto.com is my go-to centralized exchange for liquidating my crypto assets. With their Crypto.com Visa debit card, I can load up my mined Ethereum to pay for power and other operating costs quickly while earning up to 8% cash back. In addition to the Visa debit card, there are additional fiat options, including wire transfers, to easily receive your profits. Crypto.com also offers additional services, including trading and even staking, to earn additional revenue on your investments. Join 10 million plus users buying and selling 100 plus cryptocurrencies at true cost by using my affiliate link in the description for a $25 funding bonus. Or enter referral code SOAT at sign up for the same bonus. Remember, cryptocurrency investment comes with significant risks, so do your own research. And welcome back, everybody. Let's get into mining profitability for the day. My next payout will apparently be at 12:33 a.m. But here it is. We're on Hive on Pool right now. And of course, Crazy Pool just started smashing blocks as soon as I hopped off. But that's okay. We're consistent here. It's fine. The projected, I think, yesterday was supposed to be around 0.079. The actual was 0.072. So we made a little bit less ETH than we were expecting. That equated to 103.26 US dollars. And that is expected for the next 24 hours to be 108 US dollars. I need to get those numbers up, but it is what it is. That's currently what I'm at as far as mining Ethereum on ETH or on Hive on Pool. So that's with 5.35 gigahash a second right now, with an average over the 24 hours of 5 gigahash. So kind of goes down as it starts getting hotter throughout the day, and then it'll come back up once it cools off at the end of the day. Yes, I am waiting for summer to be over, because Lord knows it's getting hot in here, and I got to take off all the thermal pads. All right, so let's get into mining profitability on what to mine. We have the corrected 3090 numbers for ZIL hash being at 110 solutions a second, Kapow at 60 megahash a second, ProgPow and FearoPow both at 60 as well. And this is at 10 cents a kilowatt hour. Ethereum is at $267 a day and $1.90 a day after power. Ravencoin at $242 a day in revenue and $1.62 a day after power. We have Cero at $239 a day in revenue and $1.60 a day after power. Fero, $224 a day in revenue and $1.50 a day after power. Ethereum Classic, $223 a day in revenue and $1.46 a day after power. Conflux, $204 a day in revenue and $1.24 a day after power. Neoxa, $1.91 a day in revenue and $1.12 a day after power. Flux, $1.90 a day in revenue and $1.21 a day after power, which is exactly even with their nice hash mining price too right now. That's relevant because this is the first day, I think, in like 6 months or so that we've ever seen nice hash similar to mining Flux directly for ZIL hash. And that's impressive. Cortex, $1.74 a day in revenue, $1.09 a day after power. Bitcoin Gold, $1.72 a day in revenue, $1.02 a day after power. And Ergo, $1.61 a day in revenue and 99 cents a day after power. Bitcoin Z coming up here out of nowhere, by the way, but I wouldn't pay it too much mind. Oh, mining pool stats. We got Bitcoin here. 225 exahash a second. I think we were at 224 yesterday, so no real changes there. Let's take a look at Ethereum, which is going to be at 944 terahash a second. Ethereum Classic at 27.5 terahash a second. And those are all pretty much no changes either. Well, there's a little change. That's a little change, right? Weren't we at like 25, 26 yesterday? So a little up on Ethereum Classic. It saw a 10% pump up to $27. Let's take a look at Flux. Flux is at 1 mega solution a second. Let's take a look at Ravencoin, which is at 2 terahash a second. No real changes. Neoxa. Has this crashed down? I'm curious. 1.54 or 154, sorry, 0.5 gigahash a second, and clearly has dropped off in hash rate with the difficulty taking a dip. The news is getting out and people are moving off of Neoxa right now. It's hard to liquidate. What are you going to do, right? That is a bummer. Let's take a look at Ergo, which is at 9.74 terahash a second. It's actually down in price to 191. Mining pool profitability for the past 90 days. Ethermine in first, mining pool hub in second, F2 pool in third. Last 60 days, ZET in first, Ethermine in second, crazy pool in third. Last 30 days, F2 pool in first, mining pool hub in second, Hivon pool in third. Last 21 days, mining pool hub in first, nano pool in second, F2 pool in third. Last 14 days, mining pool hub in first, nano pool in second, F2 pool in third. Last 7 days, ZET in first, nano pool in second, Ethermine in third. Last 3 days, ZET in first, nano pool in second, and Crux pool in third. And for the last day, ZET in first, nano pool in second, Crux pool in third. All right. ASIC mining hardware. Let's get into that. See what's going down. We still have the L7 pretty much at the top. Nyan coin coming back strong today. It had a little bit of a fall off yesterday. Apparently, the L7 will do $38.40 a day in Nyan coin. That good old kitty coin. The Doge before Doge was Doge. Gold Shell KD6 at $15.02 a day. And then the KD5 is way down here at $9.20 a day. If we look at the S19 Pro, we are up on those to $6 a day on Digibyte. Let's get into questions and answers. Remember, super chats are never required. Always appreciated first to be read because they're the easiest to read. And if you tag at Son of a Tech, it highlights the message orange and lets me check it out. So, Cake Winter says, ask Son of a Tech, try running a Windows miner with Wine. Maybe it translates to OpenCL or OpenCL to Vulkan. I don't think it'll function that way because one is for graphics and one is for processing, right? So I was already looking into that because if you can do it, then you wouldn't need to use Wine. You can just install Windows directly, but Windows, from what I saw in the driver packages that are available for this particular board, even Windows doesn't have the OpenCL support. Village PC says, ask Son of a Tech, I don't really think there's an excuse for new proof of work coins not assume a 51% attack is coming and build out tech to mitigate that before you launch. I think I agree with you at this point now, Village. Now, maybe back, it's hard because we look at what Neoxa is saying. You want to feel bad for him. at the same time, you want to say, well, all that really tells me is that they're inexperienced devs. And this should have been something that they prepared for. And at the very least had a way to mitigate it in some form or fashion, as opposed to what it basically was, which was a straight fork of Raven coin with this kind of tacked on proof of game portion of it, which is pretty much, if we look at it objectively, just an airdrop through video games, right? In this particular case, through Rust. And I think that if they looked at it, if you look at start building a coin now, I think the number one thing you're going to look at is, well, how do I prevent 51% attacks, right? Like, I just feel like that is, like, when I'm looking at Soakcoin, the first thing I did was be like, okay, so how do I, as a single guy that's just kind of doing this as a hobby, how do I prevent 51% attacks? And I'm looking through that, and I'm looking through my options. I find Komodo. I'm like, okay, I could pull the security over from that. That would keep me protected up to this point. And that is kind of, I was already thinking about that, right? Like, so if I'm thinking about it, like, I don't get it. Why are other devs not thinking about it? Or did they think about it and then they were just like, oh, well, whatever, we're going to go with it because we like Kapow better? Or why, right? Like, I don't know exactly why. Gandalf Gray says, that's not think I've been mining Ergo to hold for the next bull run. If I hold Ergo to sell later, will it get redistributed? How do you prevent this? Create another Nautilus address and transfer between? That's a good question. I'll ask them specifically, but yes, there are the storage fees, and that means that basically there will be a fee that gets charged to the wallet if it isn't accessed. I think it's like for 5 years though. It's pretty long. It's pretty long. Jacob Matson says, Ask Tech, I can't take an article seriously when they have an interviewee named Dick Lowe. Hey, bro, it's Dick Lowe. Gandalf Gray, Ask Tech, I think it will be a 75 today because there will be a gap between these numbers releases and the next. And they don't want to have multiple months of terrible markets. Village BC says, Ask Tech, when you're evaluating new projects you might want to mine, do you have a research process you go through? I like to read the white paper, check out the websites, check out the GitHub, see if they've made any significant changes. And then I like to go, obviously, into the Discord and see what they are talking about, etc. That's pretty much it. I'm not going to pick winners every time, right? Part of what I do, though, too, is I try to create how to mine for almost everything, right? Like, regardless of what I personally feel about the project, I still try to make a how to mine it because other people might still need to know how to mine it and might have a different opinion than I have. And so that doesn't mean that if I have a negative opinion, that doesn't mean that I shouldn't still learn about the project and how to mine it and give that information to the public. So it's kind of a weird position to be in. XDX says, hey, son of a tech, do you mine and sell? Just mine. Can someone live off mining alone? I think at this point in the bear market, it'd be very tough. I mean, obviously, if you have enough capital, you can almost live off of anything, right? So what do I mean by that? Like, real estate might come down, but if you have enough real estate, it's not going to affect you as much. It's the same thing with mining, right? Like, if the market's down, you can't live off of it depending on the size of your farm and your operation and your costs. So anyone can almost live off of anything, right? Just depending on, how much capital you have to invest in it. And that'll always be the same with any kind of asset class, right? Or revenue generation asset. Hugo Down, thanks for the $10 super chat, says, I love the content and appreciate what you do. I appreciate you, Hugo. Thanks for always being here. Niv Archangel says, Ask Tech, do you think this 2.0 will happen in September or going to delay until 2044? 2.0 will never happen. We already talked about that. If you're specifically talking about the merge will happen in September. I'm pretty certain it will. I think it'll happen earlier in September than September 19th as well. But some people disagree with me. People that know a lot more than me, like Bits Be Trippin'. So I could be completely incorrect. But I'm preparing for it to be happening in September. Nick Burns says, at Summitech, with Celsius giving out 100% returns, that was considered high and unsustainable. Can you talk about Flux Titan node giving out almost the same returns for staking? Well, it's different, isn't it? Because the returns are based on how much the market is at right then. So those will adjust, right? So, all right, how do we explain this? So if you have, or you are in a centralized platform and you put in your money to stake, that centralized platform is then going out and trying to find projects like Flux to put it into to generate that high yield. Okay. Plus a lot of other sketchy ones like that. Now, why is it higher return rate right now? Because there's hype surrounding it as far as Flux goes. So what will happen though is because it's decentralized, that number's just going to come down. Like those returns will come down. The problem is when you have a centralized exchange that people put money into, and then that centralized exchange promises the returns that they're seeing on Flux currently, not anticipating the Flux returns to come down. That's when you run into problems, because now they owe the people that staked in that return, but the actual decentralized platform that they are invested into to generate those returns are no longer generating those returns. That is the difference between both of those things, right? Jacob says, at Summit Tech, have you watched RPM's new 6700 video? Yes, I already did. Also, when you set overclocks, do you change the SoC frequency or SoC VDD max for AMD cards? It depends. Not all the time. I haven't noticed that it brings down necessarily always the power consumption. But yes, I do play with it when I have them. DK says, at Scientific, how are you feeling about the Nyan coin? Are you planning on making a how-to for the L3 Plus? I haven't even gotten that far yet. We obviously rebuilt the whole farm. Today, I have appointments for the kids. I don't think that I'll get to anything today. I wanted to get to the how to mine Monero on the Steam Deck, but I don't think I'll even get to that today because I gotta go do a whole bunch of stuff, unfortunately, because obviously we are in the bear market and I need to make more content, but I am already killing myself. I'll be completely honest with you guys. I am working myself to death on the YouTube channel and making less and less money every day to the point to where I can't even afford food. That is where we're at. R2, thanks for the $1.99 super chat. Ugh. Let's get it going. But yes, I want to get the L3 Plus video done. I got to get the review out for the S10. We have all these cards back here that Coastal sent. These are all broken. Apparently 5600 XTs. So we're going to be doing some sets on this as well. Yeah, we had the Steam Deck pre-ordered and I sold a 3090 to get the Steam Deck to do a video on it, and then we're selling it, Joel. I'm literally selling stuff to buy other stuff to make YouTube content with. It is what it is. Nick Burns, thanks for the $4.99 super chat. And we've already talked about revenue, but revenue on the YouTube channel is below $2,500, which doesn't even pay rent and utilities. So YouTube revenue is not really doing anything. And we've already talked about the mining revenue as well. So, you know, you guys see how much we have out there. We don't have anything out there. We just don't. I'll be selling 3090s to pay rent next month for sure. It is what it is. And then I did pick up 2 consulting jobs, an IT firm, or not an IT firm, a law firm and a web dev position. So you'll start to see me probably push away from YouTube and just do the morning show for a while with a lot less dedicated video content moving forward. Sounds like renting is killing your bear market strategy. Renting is definitely not helping, but it's a lot more the power issue that we're having now. But we'll probably be canceling the lease and moving the farm, though, depending on how August 8th goes. The farm's paying for itself, so we're good there. But it's literally, that's all it's doing after the power issues that happened. So we're looking at like, I think we lost $20 this month. I've covered all the costs before, so it's a little annoying to always answer it, but it's $17.21 averaged out over 3 years, right? So it goes up. It's like $16.40 right now, and it goes up every year. And then the paces you have. Yeah, I thought we could outwork YouTube and just like make more content, but the more content I make, the less views we get. So that didn't work. I tried. That didn't work. But it is what it is. I do not have a home to move it back to, Jacob. No. And we'll probably be, honestly, getting kicked out of here and then have to move in with my parents while I work. So I'll probably be recording out at the farm, but I'll be getting rid of the farm, or probably getting rid of the lease at the farm and then trying to move it out to a different location. But we'll probably be hitting up. I'm probably, honestly, as soon as this lease is up for this place, be trying to move in with my parents. And then we will probably move the mine out to, I'm going to try to move it out to West Texas until the bear market's over. But we have like a year left here, I think, at this point. Something like that. Something like that. Yeah, mobile farm and plug it into a Tesla. Yeah. It is what it is. At least the farm's doing pretty good lately. Yeah, I wouldn't mind going to jail, making statements. FE says, ask 7Tech, just get a consulting job and make $150 an hour and you'll be fine. I'm not going to get $150 an hour. I just won't, I don't think, at this point. Jobs are scarce right now. I did pick up 2 consulting jobs, though. That's what we were talking about earlier. Birthing says, ask 7Tech, I'm from Texas. Currently the process of building a new building for mining. If you're interested in moving, ever get in contact with me. Yeah, let me know what the costs are going to be and all that. I technically have a new building over here, but I don't, like, with the power company, I can't do anything. Jared says, if all 178,000 subscribers just donated $1 for your hard work, you'd be straight, dog. But yeah, but we only have 224 concurrent viewers. Like, let's not lie about what's happening. Like, look, it's really, like, let's not deceive ourselves. There's 178,000 subscribers that don't matter. They don't watch the channel. Like, we get maybe 9,000 views a day. Like, they don't watch it. 178,000 people are not watching the channel anymore. Like, 9,000, 8,000 people are watching the channel. Like, that's like, you can't look at something. And I try to do this all the time, and I should have done it earlier, probably. It's fine. I was trying to work through it. We tried to do the locals. We tried to spin up some extra income. You have to look at everything objectively and say, okay, if this isn't working, right? Now, I'm still going to hit the next bull run. I'm still going to do the content, and I'm still probably going to be accurate. And then 2025, we'll have the same thing. We'll hit like 500,000 subscribers. Everybody will be like, oh, you're so lucky. And like, this is amazing. And I'll be like, yeah, but we went through a bear market for 2 years and I sold all my shit and was living with my parents. And that'll be like it is every single time. Like, this is the way it goes. The success, the reason I'm going to make sure I stick around this time for the bear market so you guys see it is so that we have proof to point back and say, no, we put in the work. There's all the proof. I put in the work. Nobody was here. Now all of a sudden, everybody's here. It'll be the same process. It's cyclical. It all happens the same, and it'll just be the way it is, right? But I definitely want to make sure that I want to try to figure out how to make the farm survive the bear market. Now, we're having other issues outside of that with power costs and everything, but that's what we got to do. You know? I probably can make like $18 an hour, Effie. I mean, honestly, I'll probably just work a night job. I'm going to pick up the consulting jobs that I can pick up and make like, you know, a couple $1,000 here and there to do some of the whatever, web dev stuff. And then I'd like to find another job doing, I guess, exchange migrations, but I kind of hate IT. Like I've talked about before, like working in IT is where I can make the most money to support the family, but I also am like extremely suicidal and depressed when I do it. So I don't know. It is what it is. Just being honest. Black Cat Crypto, thanks for the 99 cents super chat sticker. So I'd rather work, I don't know. I'd rather like just be poor. I'd rather just be poor. Really. It doesn't bother me that much. As long as I can make the kids happy. Colton says, SM Attack, too bad stealing power involves running an extension cord right to where you live or work. Really gives it away. Hugo says, SM Attack, do you think the decline of views is caused by the bear market? Yes, for sure. Yeah, it's the same as always. Like if you go look at, like we can do that if you guys want, but look, so I'll show you guys. It's pretty simple. The like views are way down, right? But we're down to like 445K views. They also reduced the CPM extremely low to like $10 per thousand. So, I mean, if you do that, that's 445 times 10, right? It should be 4,450, but YouTube takes their cut, right? So then YouTube takes another cut, and then we end up under $2,000 or whatever, or 2,500. But all right, so this isn't really that. It's everyone, right? Like Red Panda's doing better, as he should, because he got that kind of more of a hardcore audience. But you know, he's down to 532. You know. You want to look at someone with like even the large channels, like you look at Vosscoin with 600,000 subs. He's at 562. He's at the same as Red Panda is, right? You look at even the big ones like what, BitBoy? I think BitBoy's even gone down pretty low as well. He's down to 3.41 million with 1.45 million subs. So like, it's the bear market. It is what it is. Like the good news is, right? It makes it really easy to start timing. Like if you look at like, I'd recommend like, even if you are not a YouTuber, getting like TubeBuddy, installing it. And then when you go through and you're looking at crypto projects and stuff, you can see the view counts. You'll get a lot more interesting ticks off of just looking at the stats surrounding cryptocurrency than you will anything else, right? Lucas says, at Son of Attack, ETC when moon, probably running up to the merge in anticipation for the merge. But honestly, like I said, the merge right now in a bear market is a terrible timing, right? It's terrible timing. I think like you're not going to see all-time highs from ETH. You're not going to see all-time highs from competitors. You're not going to see any of that, right? The only potential you have for the merge, if it's successful, is for everything to stay the same, status quo, price-wise. The only other potential is that everything takes a dump because it's not successful and it just crashes the entire market, the entire DeFi market, right? Village BC says, "Ask Simon Tech, I'm in IT after 25 years in it. I hate it." Yeah, I feel you. That's the whole thing is like, if I think I like IT, I like working in the space. I hate working under someone in IT because I don't know if you've had the same experience, but you just end up being on salary and giving your entire life to somebody else. I just don't think it's worth it. Like I just don't. Like, I think it'd be better to just go work at like a gas station or something, or go work on bikes again. Yeah. Sean, thanks for the $5 super chat. Are there casinos in your area? Try and get in there as a dealer. It's an easy job and pays pretty well. Just need a gaming license. There you go. Well, we're going to keep trying to do Twitch and stuff too. At least for the time being, I'm on Twitch at 9 o'clock at night. I would like to be back on at 6 o'clock, but that won't be happening for the next 2 weeks because I have a very busy schedule with the kiddos. So that's kind of where that's at. Birthing says, "Ask Simon Tech, I'll message you and throw some ideas your way. It won't be finished until the end of the year, most likely. You're in East Texas, about 6 hours away." Gotcha. Mike B says, "Ask Simon Tech, I was a mechanic for 20 years, quit and got into IT. I like it, but I'm the only guy at a small startup." Yeah, and like I'm sure a lot of it has to do with like where you work and how you work and all that, right? There's got to be like some sort of balance between how much you make and how much of your life it takes away. I pretty much missed I missed the first 4 or 5 years of my son's life. Really, honestly, I've probably missed all of my daughters growing up and like working an IT job for I think, man, I think like it's the biggest regret of my life because I was miserable and I missed all my kids' stuff. I missed all of it. And it kind of sucks. Like I thought that I was going to do better in this bear market. I fucked up. I didn't do as good. And now I'm probably back in the same position of probably going back to missing all of my kids' stuff. It is what it is, though. I was a mechanic for like 7 years. Wrenching in Texas is pretty hard because it's really hot. I never had a AC cooled garage. Jared says, "Ask Simon Tech, you make a great stripper," is what your girl just said. God dang it. All you guys with the OnlyFans suggestions, we gotta go do those hot tub Twitch streams, huh? Everybody always says, "Do what you love and the money follows." I've never actually found that to be true. I've been doing this for like 12 years. We had some stuff. We had a good time last year. We'll have a good time again soon too. I mean, like that is what it is, right? It's just about trying to figure out how to make it work better. You know, like I have to figure out how to do better. That's it. And if you guys have suggestions for how I can do better for y'all, you let me know and I'll try to do it, right? Shit, Village BC. I don't got a dad bod. I got some nice pecs, bro. If I took this shirt off, baby, you'd be surprised. That's what I gotta do though, is just go practice more jujitsu, and then we'll feel better. We always do. We always do. I gotta get going because I got to get ready to take the kiddo to a dentist appointment, and I think I'm gonna try to do a real quick how-to on this Steam Deck. I think. So I don't know. Well, we were what was it? The milk? We'll save that for other places. We'll save that for other places. 100 Air, thanks for the $10 super chat. Says, here's some lunch money. Thanks for streaming. Yes, sir. Can always fight in the UFC. I don't know if my hips will do that, but I can go do some more jujitsu. How to on a double spend get more than 51% of the hash rate. And have a longer chain. And then the network sees that chain as the primary. I'm going to play with the Steam Deck more. I can't wait to do this too. I need to go get some 6600s from the house or from the farm. I need to get some 6600s. I need to do, man, I got a lot of work to do, guys. We're going to try to get a dedicated video out for today because I don't have one set up for today, but I'm not sure that I have enough time because we got, I think I got to leave here in an hour and 45 minutes. And then I won't be back until jiu-jitsu, and then we'll be doing jiu-jitsu tonight. So I'm going to see what we can do. Bojangles, thanks for the $5 super chat, my man. Keeping the dream alive, boosting that algorithm. There has also been something going on with the algorithm too. Just a quick note, guys. For whatever reason, I'm getting told that people are not getting the notifications. I don't know why. Michael Hill says the 6700 are king for the Raven. I thought it was the 6800 XT. Jared says, that son of a tech, you already do a lot for us bums. Sending out good vibes your way, man. Thank you, good sir. It is what it is. I'm going to be as transparent and clear as possible. Because you guys need to know if I'm failing and why I'm failing, right? Right now I'm failing because, not actually because of rent. I thought it would have been rent, but I mean, probably here in September it'll be because of rent, or it would have been because of rent. But we basically had my energy cost increase by 300% with no actual increase in the price per kilowatt hour. And it's based on a separate fee that apparently gets around the kilowatt hour, and we'll be moving the farm probably. All right, boys. I'm going to get to it, get some more content out, and I'll see you next Tuesday. I'm sweaty as fuck. Always in here. Always.